Hi everyone, it's Miss Costa here, and today we're going to look at the circumference of a circle. And what better way to show you the circumference of a circle than with the London Eye? So hopefully you can see it behind me, and we're going to see if we can figure out what the circumference of the London Eye is. Okay, so let's have a go at seeing if we can work out the circumference of one of these circles. Now first, before we do that, we need to be feeling confident with our circle terminology. So the radius is a word we need to know, and it's the line that goes from the center of the circle to the outside of the circle. Okay, so the radius is essentially how the circle is formed, because if you have a point anywhere and it's equidistant, so the same distance all the way around, then that's a circle. Okay, so the radius is a line from the center to the outside. The second line we really need to know about is the diameter. Okay, and the diameter is what we're going to be using primarily. So the diameter is a line from one edge of the circle to the other, going through the center. Okay, and now circumference, that's what we're going to be trying to find out, but circumference just means the perimeter of the circle. Okay, so the circumference of this circle would literally be all of this over here. Okay, all the way around the circle. Circumference is just a name for the perimeter of the circle, but because we normally measure lengths using straight lines, it's got a special word, circumference. Okay, so circumference means the perimeter, the outside of the circle. And the next thing we need to know about circles and their circumference is that the circumference is always in relation to the diameter. So if I had the diameter and I drew it out and I measured it, let's say in this instance the diameter is 10 centimeters, and then let's say I had a piece of string, measured it as 10 centimeters, and I put it around the outside of the circle. So this diameter here would be, let's say, the equivalent of this part of the circle. Does that make sense? I've taken this, put it into like a piece of string and just wrapped it around. So that's one set of the diameter, one length of the diameter, which is 10 centimeters. That obviously doesn't cover the whole circle. So I take another piece of string, same length, 10 centimeters, the diameter, and I'd start going around again. Okay, and that would be another 10 centimeters. But once again, I haven't quite gone all the way around the circle. So what I'd need to do is take another piece of string, another 10 centimeters, which is the length of the diameter, and go around. Now, obviously I haven't done this super accurately, but if you did, and you can do this at home, you can draw a circle by just literally getting a piece of string, having a pin, and then measuring, you know, like measuring it, what's the word? So I've got the majority of my circle, but I still have this little bit over here left over. And if I measured that, that would come to, well, let's round it, but 1.4, yeah, let's round it to 1.4 centimeters. Okay, we'll talk about the proper number later. So in total, if I laid that all out, the circumference of my circle would be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 1.4, which would be 31.4 centimeters. What was my diameter originally? I said that my diameter was 10 centimeters. So can we see that there's a relationship between the diameter and the circumference, and that it's generally roughly 3 times the amount? Now you can try this on any circle, measure the diameter, get a piece of string, measure the circumference, and it will be roughly 3. The exact number we're about to talk about, but just bear in mind that if you unraveled the circumference, whatever the diameter is, the circumference, the perimeter would be roughly 3 times that size. Okay, so a bit of a brain blank, but if you got a pin with a piece of string, tied a pencil to the end of it, and like just drew it, because it would always be outstretched to the same distance, because the string is the same distance, it would give you a perfect circle essentially. And you can try it yourself. Once you've got your piece of string, lay it out like I've done here. This is part of the circumference, and then just get another piece of string and go from one edge of the circle to the other, and you can see the relationship yourself, which we're about to finally discover. So we've got 1, 2, 3 lengths of the diameter and this little bit left over. So I've got the majority of my circle, but I still have this little bit over here left over. And if I measured that, that would come to well, let's round it, but 1.4, yeah, let's round it to 1.4 centimetres. Okay, we'll talk about the proper number later. So in total, if I laid that all out, the circumference of my circle would be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 1.4, which would be 31.4 centimetres. What was my diameter originally? I said that my diameter was 10 centimetres. So can we see that there's a relationship between the diameter and the circumference, and that it's generally roughly 3 times the amount? Now you can try this on any circle, measure the diameter, get a piece of string, measure the circumference, and it will be roughly 3. The exact number we're about to talk about, but just bear in mind that if you unraveled the circumference, whatever the diameter is, the circumference, the perimeter would be roughly 3 times that size. Okay, so let's see if we can have a go at working out the circumference of this circle. Its diameter is 7 centimetres, and I know that any circle, the circumference is roughly 3 times larger than its diameter. So you should always do a rough estimate in your head. 7 times 3, we know is 21, so we know it's going to be around about 21. So if by accident you type a number wrong in your calculator and you got, I don't know, 2.17, you know it's way too small. The circumference has to be larger than the diameter. Okay, so circumference is pi times diameter, so the circumference will be pi times by 7. Now the way you write pi, you're going to have to use a calculator, and the button, it appears differently on a lot of calculators, but it's just that one there near the times 10. So you press shift and times 10, oops, and it comes up with pi. Okay, so shift and times 10, and then you've got pi. So in my calculator, I'm going to type 7 times by pi, and it comes up and it gives me, I don't know if you can see, but it gives me 7 pi. So 7 pi is obviously, when you're simplifying algebra, you just write it. You write the letters, the numbers, the symbols next to each other, and the multiplication is implied. So 7 pi is the value, but it's not the numerical value. So when you've got 7 pi, oh, I just deleted it by accident. 7 times by pi. When you've got 7 pi in your calculator and it gives it to you in that form, you just press the SD button. So I don't know if you can see it, but the SD button. So that would give you 21.99114858. And that's it really. Circumference is pi, the number, which is 3.14159 etc. It's stored in the memory of the calculator, which is why we use it and why we've given it a name and a symbol. So pi times 7, 21.99. Generally, we round things to 2 decimal places, so that would be 21.99. And there you've got your circumference, which is the perimeter, the distance around the circle.
So here are the 2 examples that we just did. You can screenshot it, turn it into revision cards, or just pause it and have a look at them again. And hopefully you're feeling confident now in working out the circumference of a circle. Just a quick hint, remember if you've only been given the radius, you need to double it so that you're working with the diameter. And here we've got your answers. Hopefully you got them all right. If you didn't, leave a comment below and let me know and I can maybe help you out. Just remember that whatever units you're given in the question are the units that you want to answer. So hopefully you notice that some are in centimetres, some are in kilometres.
So hopefully you're feeling pretty confident with finding the circumference of a circle. So now let's see if we can do a little challenge and figure out the circumference of the London Eye. So let's hop right back to London. Just go on the London Underground.
Now while I'm waiting for my tube, can you remember what the formula for the circumference of a circle is? If not, let's write it down again. To work out the circumference of a circle, you do pi times the diameter. And we've made it! So here, welcome to the London Eye. So here's the challenge. The London Eye is made up of a number of spokes. Now a spoke is just like a long rod, okay? So a long metal rod, hopefully you can see them, little outlines. Each of these are 60 metres long. So if you know that, can you tell me what the circumference of the London Eye must be?
So now we can see the London Eye from afar. Let's
Let's just see if you've managed to figure it out. So you should have done pi times 120, which would have given you 376.99 metres. So huge congratulations if you've managed to do that. You've mastered working out the circumference of a circle. Well done.